champions. Take a deep breath, look at your neighbor, tell them, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Today, I want you to unlock your ultimate destiny. Are you tired of the struggle? Just let go and let God. We all know that when one door closes, God opens a window. And honestly, if you just step out in faith, you will realize that everything happens for a reason. Stop stressing because God will not give you more than you can handle. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And by all things, I mean hit your fitness goals, get that promotion, and live your absolute best life now. So sit back, manifest your destiny. You are enough. You have the power. Just dig deeper. But let's be honest. If it were really that easy, we would all be completely healed, perfectly stress-free, and floating on the clouds of perpetual happiness. In reality, self-help books are the fastest growing genre. They're constantly in the top 3. In 2022, $11.4 billion were spent on self-help books. Skyrocketed after COVID. We told everyone, you're not essential. Go home and sit there and watch TV all day. And watch the news. We sat down, watched the news, watched our city get destroyed. It was, absolutely horrible for everybody. Podcasts on self-improvement and personal development are in the top 10. Confidence is always the number 1 topic that they talk about. And yet, more self-help equals anxiety and depression. Their studies have proven this. You never feel like you're enough. Culture says the answer to your weakness is more of you. If self-help, you already have decided that there's a problem with you, your answer can't be you. You can't be the answer for your problem. And yet, society says that this is true. So how do we actually help ourselves? Today I want to talk about the story of Gideon. I want to share a little bit about myself, and then go into the New Testament and see what Paul and Jesus have to say about this. So this is beyond self-help. This isn't self-help. This is like anti-self-help. But I'm glad you guys enjoyed that intro. There's that nervous part where you're going, will this be as funny to them as it was to me? Will this come across? As soon as I heard the first laugh, I knew we were fine. That means you guys know me. I cannot be that happy for very long. If you want a joyful self-help talk, you'd have Kate up here. She might not be the self-help person, but she'll at least talk with, a higher tone to her voice, be a little bit more happy and poignant, I think is the word I'm looking for there. Like, not me at all. So, the reality of our inadequacy. Well, the story of Gideon starts in Judges chapter 6. And at this point in the biblical storyline, the Israelites, people that God has chosen, have come out of slavery in Egypt. They've gone through the wilderness, into the promised land. They've conquered almost all of what they were supposed to conquer. They left some people there. Those people are the Midianites and the Amalekites, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. And in Judges, you have what some people will call the sin cycle. I'll call it the redemption cycle because each story of the Judges starts with Israel sinned. And then because of Israel's sin, you have a group, usually the Midianites or the Amalekites or Moabites or one of the ites, will come in and destroy them in some way. Might just be like a small area, might be a larger group. In Gideon's story, we'll see that they just took all of the grain, all of the fruit, all of the livestock, and then God will bring up a judge, and the judge will take care of the problem, get out the people that weren't supposed to be there, and then there's redemption. Then there's a break, and then the cycle repeats itself. So, I will call this a redemption cycle because we start with sin and end with redemption. We're not ending with sin. Amen. Always good when the story ends with redemption. So, Judges chapter 6. Then the sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh gave them into the hands of Midian for 7 years. The power of Midian prevailed against Israel. Because of Midian, the sons of Israel made for themselves the dens, which were in the mountains, and the caves, and the strongholds. Isn't it great to be living in the promised land and you have to go live in the mountains, like hiding away? I love the mountains. Kate and I have actually talked about how the mountains are like one of our favorite places to be. I don't want to hide away in the mountains. When I live in the land of flourishing, I don't want to hide in the mountains. But that's where Israel is. For it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites would come up with the Amalekites and the sons of the east and go against them. So they would camp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance in Israel, as well as no sheep, ox, or donkey. Israel grows things, they have livestock, and God gives them the land of milk and honey, land of flourishing, land of abundance. The Midianites, they're just doing what smart people would do. The Israelites are really good at growing this stuff. I'm just going to come in and take it when they're done growing it. Let them do the work. We call that a parasite. Not a group of people in the Bible. Those are, Moabites and Amalekites, they are parasites. Verse 4, so they would camp against them and destroy the produce of the earth. I already just read that. 5, for they would come up with their livestock and their tents. They would come in like locusts for number. Both they and their camels were innumerable, and they came into the land to devastate it. In Israel's history, where have we seen locusts coming in and destroying stuff before? Egypt, the plagues in Egypt. This could be a little hey guys, remember this? I've sent the locusts to help you. Now I'm sending these people that are like locusts to destroy you. So Israel was brought very low because of Midian, and the sons of Israel cried to Yahweh. This word very low, New American Standard is the only English translation that uses very low. The rest of them will use poor or weak, devastated. It's the word dal, D-A-L in Hebrew. And oftentimes this is used for talking of people that are poor or of a lower class or weaker, and it's usually compared to the strong, which there are 2 words in Hebrew that's usually compared to. One is asir, and the other one is gibor. And we'll see the comparison in a couple of verses, but Israel is very low at this point. And part of this word dal, very, very low, is when Jesus is talking about the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit. I know he wasn't speaking Hebrew in that moment. It translates the same way. This is what he's talking about. Blessed are in Hebrew it would be dal, the poor in spirit. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I know we've talked about that before a few years ago, just how crazy God flips that, or Jesus flips that. Back to our story, verse 7. Now it came about when the sons of Israel cried to Yahweh on account of Midian, that Yahweh sent a prophet to the sons of Israel. And he said to them, thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, it was I who brought you up out of Egypt and brought you out of the house of slavery. I love it when God comes in and goes, hey, remember what I did for you guys? You must have forgotten that. I delivered you from the hands of the Egyptians and from the hands of all your oppressors, and dispossessed them before you and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am Yahweh, your God. You shall not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live. But you have not obeyed me. So there's the problem. They haven't obeyed. Sometimes, when things aren't quite going your way, when the Israelites have a promise that they're going to be in this land of abundance and flourishing, and, it's abundant and flourishing, just not for them. Sometimes, it's because when we're in those places, sometimes it's because we're not obeying God. There might be something that we have, God has given us a promise, put us in a place where we're supposed to be abundant and flourishing, and it just doesn't seem like it's working. And we keep striving for, trying to get, do things on our own, And sometimes we're not obeying God. But let's see what happens. Verse 11. Then the angel of Yahweh came and sat under the oak that was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezerite, as his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress in order to save it from the Midianites. A lot of people will tell you that Gideon was a coward because of this verse. I'm not sure. He was in a winepress because obviously he wasn't a warrior. Clearly he wasn't a warrior. If he was a warrior, he'd been out there on the threshing floor with the wheat where the wind was so it could take away the chaff and be like, I don't care about the Midianites, I can take them. He's not that kind of a judge. Those judges exist in this book. Gideon's not one of those. He's trying to make sure he has some wheat. And he might be a coward. We'll see later, he probably is a coward. But this, I think, is just intelligence. I can't beat the Midianites. I want some food. I'm going to hide. Not a great place to beat the wheat. No wind in the pit to take away the chaff, so you're going to get the wheat and the chaff, and you got to separate yourself. But let's see what the angel says. The angel of Yahweh appeared to him and said to him, Yahweh is with you, O valiant warrior. This is that word Gibor I told you about, that you have Dal is always in comparison with Asir or Gibor. Valiant warrior is Gibor. I think we just said Gideon was not a valiant warrior, or he probably would have been like, who cares about the Midianites? I'll just take them on. He's not Samson. Samson would have just taken them on. He's Gideon. He probably looks a lot like me, maybe a little bit shorter. I'm not taking anybody on unless they are well shorter than me. But you always have these in the Old Testament. They're always juxtaposed against each other, and God is just setting the scene here and getting us ready for a fantastic ending to the story. Gideon said to him, verse 13, O my master, if Yahweh is with us, why then has all this happened to us? Have we ever questioned that? If God is good, why do bad things happen? Common question. Bad things will happen. Let's see how God responds. He said to him, O master, how shall I deliver Israel? Behold, my family is the least in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's house. Okay, what did he just tell us? I am the youngest in my house, so I am weak, I'm less than. My father's house is the weakest in our tribe, and this tribe of Manasseh. It's one of the few times they're missing a little clarity here. Usually when we talk about Manasseh, it's the half tribe of Manasseh, reminding you like they're the smallest. Something happened to them, and God was like, yeah, no, we got to split this up. They're the half tribe of Manasseh. They're not a full tribe. So they're the weakest. Gideon's family is the weakest in the weakest, and Gideon is the weakest of the weakest in the weakest. He's pretty low, isn't he? But so is Israel, so it's great. But he's Gibor. God has called him Gibor. He's a valiant warrior. Verse 16, but Yahweh said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat Midian as one man. Isn't that great? One man. This isn't Samson. Samson was one man, he killed more in his death than he did in his life. By himself. This is Gideon. Scrawny little guy. One man will defeat all of Midian. So Gideon said to him, if now I have found favor in your sight, then show me a sign that it is you who speak with me. Please do not depart from here. Oh, I didn't have that verse. Never mind. That is you that speaks with me. So, we'll skip down a little bit. Gideon gathers up a sacrifice and like, stay here, as I just read, stay here, goes and gets a sacrifice together and comes back. And verse 21 says, then the angel of Yahweh put out the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread that was the sacrifice, and fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. Then the angel of Yahweh vanished from his sight. Isn't it nice when God gives you a wonderful sign? Fire, doing things that fire isn't supposed to do. Again, this has happened before in Israel's history. Moses, burning bush, fire is doing things that fire is not supposed to be doing. Fire coming out of nowhere doesn't happen. There's always a reason for fire to happen. But with God, the laws of physics just do not matter to God. Do not matter at all. Verse 22, when Gideon saw that he was the angel of Yahweh, he said, "Alas, O Master Yahweh, for now I have seen the angel of Yahweh face to face." Yahweh said to him, "Peace to you, do not fear, you shall not die." I would love for Yahweh to come down and say that to me. It's like at some point when there's like a real tough spot that I'm in, it's like, peace, shalom, you will not die. It's like, oh, maybe I can do whatever I want now. Maybe like I just got some freedom. It's got some freedom within what God has called me to do. Maybe Gideon doesn't see it that way. Then Gideon built an altar there to Yahweh and named it Yahweh is Shalom. To this day, it is still an Ophrah of the Abiezerites. So the story goes on a little bit further, but we'll stop there for now. When Gideon tells God, like this, I'm the lowest, why would you use me? God's response is, I'm with you. Doesn't really answer the question, does he? Again, let's look back to Israel's history. We're at the burning bush with Moses is there. God's telling him, you're going to go into Pharaoh. The guy that you grew up with, your grandfather, you're going to go to him, and you're going to tell him, let my people go. And he goes, but how? Like, well, I'm with you. Like, no, that doesn't answer my question to God. Like, how am I supposed to get your people, my people, out of Egypt, big bad Egypt, and where you want them to be? Like, I am with you. Not an answer to my question. I feel like sometimes, and Jesus does this a lot too, never answers the question, right? Once he answers the question, I believe, and he answers that question twice. They didn't ask for two answers. But God doesn't usually answer that question either. It's like, nope, trust me, I am with you. It reminds me of what God told Moses to tell Joshua in Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Not an answer to how are we going to defeat everybody in the land that we're going into, but, okay, God's with me. What are we going to do? God's with me. God chooses the weakest of the weak so that when the victory comes, it can be undeniable that it was God. Your inadequacy isn't a barrier to God. It's his favorite canvas. It's where he likes to start. So, growing up, I look back now and I can relate to where Gideon was. Small, scrawny kid. The Bible doesn't say he was small and scrawny. I'm just taking the details that they're giving us and going, he was probably a small, scrawny kid. Never says how old he was. But he was the smallest of his father's house. I was so small that my mom would come to go to her friends and be like, hey, can you pray with me that Joshua will just grow? Like, he's just a small kid. Can you pray with me? I did have areas of me that grew. My ears have always been this big. My nose has always been this big. My teeth have always been this big since they came in when I didn't lose my first tooth until I was 8. Mike has lost 2 teeth, and he's asking me all about teeth, losing teeth, and when we're supposed to lose our teeth, and how long he's going to be losing teeth for. I was like, dude, I don't know. I lost my first tooth when I was 8. I lost my last tooth when I was in 8th grade. I don't know. Do not know. Talk to your mom. But can you put that picture up? Just Joshua as a little boy. This is middle school Joshua. The nose, you can't really see the nose too well on that one. That's why I put the side one in there. I don't put this up and talk about this as like a self-pity. I look great now. I'm like the ugly duckling. I really started out a little rough. But I think I look great now. Hattie told me today that it was today or yesterday, I think she told me that I look gorgeous. So I'm good. But when I remember when I was in 6th grade, things happened in school. Kids are the worst to each other. I got a fun little nickname that neither of these words should be used to make fun of anybody. But my friends, their nickname for me was Gay Jew. Not something that we should be making fun of anybody for any of these things. That held until 12th grade. Like, nobody was really calling me this anymore. But then, like, one of the girls that I went to middle school with walks up to me and goes, "So, are you gay?" I was like, "No." It's like, "Well, are you Jewish?" "No." It's like, then why you got me. I don't know why they call me this. But this is the nickname that I got. Self-confidence, real low. Real low. My best friends, met them when I was in 2nd grade. They were twins, lived around the corner from me. Fantastic. And then, middle school comes. And they were my only friends. Or they were only my friends. They were my only friends. But they were only my friends when no one else was around. When everyone else was around, I could, be friend adjacent. They let me, stand in the circle before school by the lockers. But, I knew not to say anything because I didn't have a clue what they're talking about. And I wasn't allowed to watch the things that they were watching. I wasn't allowed to say the words that they were saying. I wasn't allowed to, they weren't allowed to do the things they were doing either. But their parents didn't know they were doing the things that they were doing. And I was a goody two-shoes Christian that just didn't do those things. They rubbed off on me a little bit. That's a different story. They rubbed off on me a little bit in some areas. But I was always friend adjacent whenever other people were there. It was very clear that as this circle got bigger and bigger, and more kids were coming in and out of it, that I was less than them. Also, didn't grow up with much money. I remember Salvation Army shopping, nothing against it. I fight it in my head now because, we can afford to not go to the Salvation Army. We can afford to not do secondhand shopping or have everything given to us. I love that my kids get all their clothes given to them. I love it. I do not have a clue how much money has been spent on their clothes. I just know it's more than I would spend on their clothes. But I remember I had one of my favorite shirts at one point growing up was this maroon shirt from the City Soccer League. Can't remember what local business was on there, but the back of the shirt, the name was Josiah. My name is not Josiah. I do not know a Josiah. Now I know a JoJo. But I wore that shirt so proudly, and people would call me Josiah, and it's like, that's not my name. So why do you wear the shirt? Because it's a cool color. But I don't say this to say that I had a bad childhood. I did not have a bad childhood. These are the things that led to the insecurities that I deal with now. Isn't this great? I know we all have them. You might not have ever looked like this. Going through all these pictures, I saw so many pictures of me as a little elementary school and going, "Oh, that's Hattie. That's Hattie." It's also really cute in elementary school. But then that happened. Big ears came. And a big nose came. I finally lost my teeth and got giant ones. They're still the same size. My head just grew into them, finally. But I did not have a bad childhood. I'm just saying this to paint a picture. I felt less than. I wasn't enough for my friends. My self-worth was plummeting. And then, we can get rid of that picture. It's scaring me, Chuck. And then, I remember I turned 13, and finally, I was able to go into the audio-video booth at my church. I don't know why they said you had to be 13. I can understand a little bit, but you had to be 13. Hard number on that. Then I met Tiny, Denny, and Skip. For the first time, I felt accepted for who I was. Tiny and Denny have passed. This is Denny's Bible. It was handed to me at his funeral. I don't really have a relationship with Skip anymore, but through them, I learned audio engineering. I learned PowerPoint presentations. I learned HTML coding, and I was a nerd on top of all the things we just talked about. That didn't really help me outside of church, but in church, I felt great. God gave me a purpose in life, and I no longer felt like I wasn't enough. I still feel this way, still have these insecurities that pop up. If you ever wonder why Joshua said something or did something, now you probably can look back and, analyze, like, oh, he was feeling some sort of, self-worth problem and, some insufficiency. Like, yeah, that probably is true. Like, I'm well aware of this. Conversations that we have more than I want. Or I just sit there and go, ooh, I just acted that way. I just said that thing. I bet I know why. So I know my fight to not go to the secondhand stores because I grew up going to the secondhand store. Not all the time, but still. But I still feel this way as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a business owner, as a human. I feel like I'm not enough. So I've been where Gideon was. I still get to a place where Gideon was. So, if self-help can't start with me, where does biblical self-help start? You guys remember the frog bracelets? Fully rely on God. Maybe we were so cool in the 90s. The church was so cool in the 90s. It was great. WWJD, frog, there were a few other ones that, I don't know why I wore those bracelets, but I did. You tell the kids that went to church camp in the summer. They always had those bracelets on. When I wore that maroon shirt, I had 2 of those bracelets. I hooked them together and wore them as like a choker necklace. I was so cool, guys. So cool. The choices that we've made. I also used to have these horrible sideburns. Couldn't grow a full beard yet. Had horrible sideburns. So, the Bible tells us that we need to rely on God. First thing, disconnect from the self-vine. Self-help doesn't work. Self-help, or help when you need it, when you are feeling insecure and insufficient, comes from God. We have to connect to the right vine. So John 15:5, Chris has been talking about this for on and off for a while, keeps coming up in messages, comes up in our conversations a lot. Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Branches don't strive to produce fruit. You can tell when you look at a branch how healthy the tree is by looking at its fruit. If there are no fruit, it's probably not a healthy tree. We actually have a plant we got from my dad, who got it from his former coworker, and he's given it to my brother and his wife, and they have a couple of these plants at home. He keeps splitting them. It's a peace lily. No one knew what it was. It was just this nice green, leafy thing. And one day, we're looking at it going, there's a white thing on there. It's never been white. And we send a picture, it blooms, we send a picture up to my parents. It's like, hey, does this thing ever flower for you? We had it for 2 years. Has it ever flowered for you? They're like, no, I didn't know it flowered. It's like, I said to my brother, has this ever flowered for you? No, I've never seen it flower. It's like, apparently we have peace in our house. Because we got peace lilies, and one just popped up the other day that I saw. So apparently ours is healthy, everyone else's is not. But you can tell that a tree is bad by looking at the branch's fruit. If that branch isn't connected to the right trunk, the right vine, it's not going to produce good fruit. They only produce when they're healthy. If they're not healthy, you might get small fruit. You might get rotted fruit. You might get like the start of fruit. I'm not a landscaper. I can't tell you exactly how all that works. I just know that it works. My garden, not healthy, clearly not healthy. I don't grow anything except for grass. I've tried. But when we try to produce fruit on our own, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, we wither. We can't produce it on our own. We have to be connected to the vine. Disconnect from the self-vine and connect to God. 2, our competence is outsourced. We can't rely on ourselves. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 3:5, as I get back to there, not that we are adequate in ourselves to consider anything as coming from ourselves, but our adequacy is from God. We can't be adequate on our own. It's the whole, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, like all of us. It's not like one of us, is adequate. No, we are adequate because Jesus was adequate. Jesus is the only one born of a man that is adequate. And it's only because his Father is God. You do not need to be the smartest, the strongest, the most spiritual, whatever that means, person in the room. I like the phrase, I don't like how much we throw it around, but I can't find a better way of saying this. God qualifies the called, does not call the qualified. God might call you to do something. Like, I've called you to be a pastor, and you go, okay, God, like, what do I do? Like, well, you're going to go to school to learn how to be a pastor. Okay, like, that's fine. We've learned something, but God has called us first. If God has called you to do something, just going out and learning all about that thing and trying to do it in and of yourself, you will fail. You might fool some people. But you will fail. God has to be the one that qualifies you. The apostles, everyone figured out that they were somehow in their speech that they knew these guys weren't the most intelligent people, and yet, man, when God spoke through them, smart guys. These guys know something. Paul, through all his intelligence, wasn't smart until Jesus came down in front of him and was like, hey, Paul, stop this. Like, come follow me. You can't make yourself more qualified to be used by God. And third, weakness is actually our leverage. It makes no sense. 2 Corinthians 12:9. And Jesus, this is Paul saying, and Jesus has said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather boast on my weakness, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. How many of us have gone to a job interview and like, hi, I'm Joshua. I don't work well with others. Like, has anyone ever done that? Like, start with your weaknesses. Doesn't usually work. Not like the way that we start. I enjoy meeting people for the first time and going, oh, that's what you want me to know about you right away. I remember when Chris first moved to New York, in like the first week or two of him being at my church, I remember this lady comes up to him and goes, hi, my name is, insert name. I'm the mother of this person. I used to be a lesbian. It's like, oh, we're starting here. Like, this isn't usually how we introduce ourselves. Like, usually we start with like, hey, like, this is my kid, you're the youth pastor, like, this is my kid, maybe this is what I do for a job, or maybe this is what I do in the church, or, I'm so glad that you're here, not like, this is my biggest sin, like, look at me. Like, but this is what Paul is saying. It's like, no, like, in your weakness, he is strong. And if I try to come at it with my own strength, I can only do so much. recently, having Havla has just completely changed our lives. But we were at a group for parents of people with disabilities, parents and caretakers and all the guardians and all the things there. And I found it interesting, the number of people that introduced themselves to me that I'd never met before with, this is like, hi, my name is, my child has this disability. And it's like, oh, that's how that's not how I start these conversations. Like, we're all here with, because we're taking care of somebody with a disability. Like, I'd rather get to know you. And it's a huge thing for moms, right? You end up defining yourself by your children. And when you are a caretaker of a child with a disability, it ends up being your life. And so, I get it. I understand it. But it's just weird to me. It's just weird to me. I'd start many other places other than, my child has a disability, and this is their disability. But I also meet new people every day, and I always talk about my family, always talk about, my wife and kids. Sometimes I bring up that Havla has a genetic disorder. Sometimes, not often. Your weakness isn't a liability, it's an opening. Some of us have a weakness that we're like, well, God can't use me because of that. It's like, no, God can use you because of that weakness. Oftentimes, the thing that you have struggled with, the thing that you're weak in, the thing that has been the biggest stronghold for you, God's going to take that and use that and go, hey, I pulled you out of here. I gave you the strength to overcome. Now you can go help others. There's a church up in Fenton that I know that there was a group of single moms that always showed up to church together. They were this really close-knit group, and the pastor comes up to them and it's like, hey, you should start a single moms ministry. And they're like, not ready yet. Not ready yet. And eventually, a few years later, they come like, Pastor, we're ready. We can do this. And now they have this great single moms ministry because it's led by not the pastor, not dads, not moms that, are with their husbands, single moms, because they know what they're going through. You don't want me leading a single moms group. You don't want me leading a moms group. You just don't want me doing it. You don't want me leading a lot of different groups because I'm not qualified to lead them. That's not saying, because I'm not qualified, God's going to use that not qualification. I don't know what you're going through. When you're at the end of your rope, that is where God's sufficiency begins. When we finally said, God, I'm done. I'm tired of trying. I'm done with this. Please take over. So those three things: disconnect from the self-vine. Our competence is outsourced, and weakness is actually our leverage. Can you come up, sir? Let's go back to Gideon's story. See how it ends. I know many of us know how it ends, but I might surprise you here. Judges 6:34. So the Spirit of Yahweh came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, and the Abiezerites were called together to follow him. God brings this big group together. But remember, earlier, you shall defeat Midian as one man. God calls together 22,000 people. God goes, no, too many. We don't know the number of the Midianites. We know there were a lot. They appeared like locusts. There's another verse that in chapter 7 that says that they outnumbered the sands on the shore. There's a lot of them. 22,000 does not seem like a big number when you're looking at, when you're sitting on the shore. You're going, how many pieces of sand do you think are here? 22,000? That sounds like no, you're way more than that. And God goes, too many. Cut them. All that are afraid, go. Gets cut. Not cut enough. Okay. All that drink water this way and not that way. Those ones go. We're left with 300. Notice God didn't say, now anyone who's afraid. I might not have been afraid the first time, but when I look around going, 299 others. Anyone afraid? That's me. Let's go. Like, I'm out of here. But God takes this 300, and they're in their camp. The Midians are coming. They've camped close enough to them that God tells Gideon, go to their camp. Take your friend Purah and go to that camp. And he goes there, and he sneaks in, and he overhears a Midianite soldier speaking to another soldier, saying, dude, I just had this crazy dream. This is like one of those cold pizza dreams. A loaf of barley came rolling down the hill and hit a tent, and it flipped upside down. It's like, okay, like most of us would just wake up and go, well, go back to sleep. Okay. No. The other soldier goes, that's the sword of Gideon. He's going to destroy us. It's like, you don't know who Gideon is? Gideon's the lowest of the low, in the lowly place. You don't know who this guy is. But barley, again, Gideon's hearing this. God's just like reaffirming to Gideon, barley is the cheapest of the grains, at least that you can make bread from. It's only the lowly ate the barley, because those who had money could afford the wheat. Gideon was the barley. And Gideon looks at his friend Purah and he's like, okay, let's go back. Okay, troops, let's get together, 300 of you. In your left hand, take a torch. In your right hand, take a trumpet. When the Bible gives detail, we know it means something. I didn't dig too deep into that one. But I know it means something. You guys want something, extra activity to do this week. Figure out why the left and why the right, and why those two things. I don't know. But they're not weapons that I'm going to choose to go into battle with. At this point, I'm going to be looking around going, please ask me. If anyone's afraid, please leave. Because I'm going to be running. I'm going to be taking that torch, and I'm going to be running. But they surround the Midianites, which also makes it sound like they were in a valley, which is not where you go if you're going to go into battle. You want to go to the high places. I'm not sure why they gave up the high place, but they weren't thinking straight, as we'll find out right about now. They break the jars over the torches, and the Midianites see all these torches in the night, all surrounding them. Can't count them that quickly, so it looks like a lot. And they hear the trumpets, and that sounds like a lot. They're in a valley. You ever been to an amphitheater, that's like a natural amphitheater? They're in a valley. And they just go crazy, start killing themselves and running away. And Gideon chases them and chases them through their lands back to where they belonged, and cut off the heads of their leaders in the place where those leaders lived. And God did the work. 300 men did not do this. God did the work. But we should have known that God was going to do the work, because at the beginning of the story, it tells us that God's going to do the work. But we don't know Hebrew very well, do we? One of the fun things this year is I'm learning a lot of Hebrew words and names and places, and there's a reason and a connection for all of them. If you just read the names of the stories and the places in the stories, you don't need to read the story. It tells you what the story is going to be. So, Gideon, his father Joash, was an Abiezerite. They were from Abiezer. Chris last week spoke about Azer, the Holy Spirit, helper. He was given to Adam as an Azer, as his helper. And Abi is a form of Abba. My father is my helper. We knew from the beginning of the story. Now, most of us grew up when we heard the story. Not nearly as exciting as I just told it, though. I left out a lot of details for you. But from the beginning of the story, we have, what is it? Verse 11, I think is it. Yeah, verse 11. We find out the end of the story. We just don't know it. God is our helper. The world invites you to self-sufficiency, but that only leads to anxiety, depression, and burnout. Jesus invites you to a life of God's sufficiency, where we have peace and rest. You don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to find the answers within you. I'm not going to get up here and preach a self-help sermon. Plenty of people are doing that. That's not my personality, not who I am. What area of your life are you desperately trying to prove you are enough? Your marriage? Your job? Parenting? Or one of those hidden sins that you don't want to talk about, where you just keep fighting and fighting, going, no, I can do it this time. I don't need to tell my spouse. I don't need to tell my best friend. I don't need to tell my family. I can do it this time. I'm sorry you can't. I'm not up here to tell you that you can. But when you're at the end, when you're done, and you give it to God, God can handle it. Stop trying to be enough on your own. So the altars will be open. I'm going to close in prayer. I would ask a pastor to come up and pray with people, but it's just you and me. Lord, we thank you that we can't be enough. We thank you that our help doesn't come from ourselves, but our help comes from our Father. Lord, we hand over our exhaustion, our depression, our anxiety. Lord, we hand it over to you. Lord, take our burdens. For when we attach to your yoke, our burdens are light. God, we acknowledge that you are enough in us, that our weakness is made strong through you, that our inadequacies do not matter. Lord, I pray that you will help me come to you more and lean on you more in my insufficiencies and with my value. Lord, I pray that for everyone here as well. Lord, we just ask that you speak to us and that you show us where we need more of you and where we need to rely on you more. And Lord, we thank you that you are strong enough to help make us whole. Lord, I pray this in your name. Amen.